purpose of the Digital Leadership Forum is to help you innovate, learn and grow in the age of AI.
If you look at the forecast, by 2025, 25% of all the data generated will be created in real time, with 95% of that data coming from IoT devices. Well, you can't extract the value from that kind of data stream without AI. By 2021, 75% of all enterprise applications will include elements of AI within them. So we recognize that AI is actually a potentially daunting topic to many people, and believe it's critical for businesses to have a foundational understanding of what it can do.
So in this session, we thought it was important to set out at an early stage some of the legal and ethical considerations that you need to take into account when you're deploying AI, whether that's through internal development of AI technologies, partnering with third parties. You really need to look at the key legal issues at each relevant stage of the life cycle, because if you don't set up your project properly for success, you might come up against problems later on. Some of the issues we'll be trying to set a bit of guidance around the legal framework, but try and be as practical as possible in terms of the legal issues that you might counter, whether that's data protection, obviously a key issue when you're dealing with personal data as part of your project, but other issues around intellectual property, liability, issues like bias and discrimination in terms of the data sets you're using and the algorithms and output, and issues like auditing and accountability around the data, but also broader considerations that may apply depending on the use case and depending on the sector that you work in, whether that's financial services regulation, competition law, reputational issues, but also the types of issues you need to think about when you're contracting with third parties. A lot of companies will be working with third parties, either using their sort of off-the-shelf AI and data science tools, or partnering with a third-party provider. And obviously a lot of these key issues need to be thought about carefully when you're working with a partner, whether, again, at each life cycle stage, from proof of concept to pilot to permanent sort of run services. It's not just what does the law say you're allowed to do and enable you to do with AI technology, but also increasingly the ethical considerations are very important as well, in terms of not just can you do it, but should you do it.
Machine learning and innovation and data science is a bit like gardening, and you have to constantly come back to it. It's like circuit training. There's all kinds of different things that you need to pay attention to, and you've got to kind of rotate your attention. We'll be talking about how to develop good ethical practices as kind of part of the culture and governance of an organization. There'll be two key takeaways from our session. The first is what I've just mentioned, that ethics is a kind of continual practice, and that you need to empower staff and make sure that people beyond the leadership team have responsibility for continually revisiting projects and unintended consequences, and thinking about how data is used. And the second is that good ethics and governance is an accelerant. And what I mean by that is that from an operations point of view, when we started Signify, we wanted to be ethical because we didn't want to be unethical. What we very quickly learned was that means giving away all kinds of responsibility to your staff, operating in a very transparent fashion, slowing down a lot before you take on projects and commissions, and thinking about all kinds of consequences that seem unimportant. But what you come to understand very quickly is that ethics and governance and a shared idea of what we can't do, and what the intention is, and how this is going to benefit end users, massively accelerates work through the project. It allows the team to operate autonomously. It's incredibly important in this new Zoom world in which we live in, that because everybody understands what you can, cannot, and should be doing, you can work and innovate in a much quicker fashion.